On the evening of June 27, 1993, 11-year-old Jeanna North left home to go rollerblading with friends near her North Fargo home. She never returned. Her disappearance sent shockwaves through the Fargo community and sparked one of the largest searches in North Dakota history. Authorities and volunteers searched tirelessly for Jeanna, but weeks turned into months with no answers. It wasn't until 1997, 4 years after she vanished, that the devastating truth came to light. Kyle Bell, the neighbor who lived kitty corner across the street, the man who had been installing lights on his pickup the night before, said he hadn't seen Jeanna. John had met him once before, a month earlier, when he walked across the street to borrow a wrench as the Norths were having a backyard barbecue on Memorial Day weekend. The man, Kyle Bell, struck John North as quiet and hardworking. But there was a hidden side to Bell, a side the Norths would soon learn all about. It didn't take long for suspicion to fall on Bell. 3 years earlier, he had served just 10 weeks of a 2-year prison sentence in South Dakota for child molestation in Aberdeen, released from parole in 1991. In interviews with the police, Bell denied any knowledge of Jeanna's disappearance, though he said he'd seen her around the neighborhood a few times. Investigators had nothing to connect Bell to the apparent crime. But then something happened that struck a rural Cass County resident as odd. Mary Hogland, who lived north of West Fargo, was driving on a county road when she saw a black pickup parked in the middle of the bridge over the Cheyenne River, with a man standing next to it, looking at the river. Tipped off about the strange encounter, authorities quietly searched the river. They found nothing. Bell gave police consent to search his pickup for Jeanna's hairs. He had earlier told police that she had never been in his truck, but as they were preparing to vacuum his cab, looking for hair or fibers, he volunteered that they probably would find hair strands that he'd once given Jeanna and a friend a ride from the Dairy Queen. Police asked Bell why he hadn't told them about the ride earlier, and Bell replied that he didn't think it was important at the time. In a follow-up interview later that day, Detective Jim Ledoux tried to coax Bell into saying something by laying out different scenarios and citing previous cases, including accidental deaths. But Bell didn't take the bait. He looked at Ledoux and said, "You had the bodies in those cases, isn't that right?" By fall, 3 months after Jeanna vanished, police announced they were drastically scaling back the search. The occasional leads surfaced and quickly evaporated, including a 6-hour search of the town of Devil's Lake, prompted by a psychic's tip. Then, in April 1994, Bell was charged with molesting 2 young girls, ages 8 and 3, as well as criminal trespass. Bell posted cash bail of $20,000 and then fled, failing to make a court appearance. In the publicity surrounding Bell's jumping bail, the North family learned for the first time their former neighbor was a convicted child molester. "How would you feel if this individual was in your neighborhood and you weren't notified?" John North asked. "It seems like the children are the ones getting the short end of the stick." He added, "The release of Kyle Bell on bail. I think this is outrageous." 4 months later, in a suburb of Denver, a police officer noticed North Dakota plates on a pickup truck stopped at a gas station. The officer ran a routine check and discovered the truck was registered to a wanted fugitive. Kyle Bell had run out of gas and luck. He refused to waive extradition, but soon was back in North Dakota to face the molestation charges involving the 8-year-old and 3-year-old girls. Police had strong evidence against Bell, and he pleaded guilty, hoping for another lenient sentence. For each of 3 molestation charges, Bell received a 10-year sentence to run consecutively for 30 years, followed by 10 years of supervised probation. Instead of being taken back to his jail cell, authorities whisked Bell to a jailhouse interview room. In exchange for a voluntary statement about Jeanna's disappearance, an investigator told Bell he would recommend an unspecified sentence to run concurrently with his molestation sentence. Interrogators reminded Bell that the statute of limitations never expires in a murder case, and someday he possibly could face charges. Bell jumped at the offer to effectively serve the same sentence for 2 criminal cases. In a series of interviews over a period of hours, Bell confessed to abducting and killing her, claiming that he disposed of her remains in the Cheyenne River which authorities were never able to recover. In the end, Bell's own incriminating words and a web of suspicious circumstantial evidence were enough to convict him of murder. On August 1999, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole to start in 2019 after his molestation sentences. However, 3 weeks later, on October 13, 1999, while being moved to a maximum security prison in Oregon, Bell escaped from a transport bus during a stop in New Mexico. On January 9, 2000, he was recaptured 88 days later in Dallas after he was featured on the national television program America's Most Wanted. Till today, more than 31 years later, Jeanna's remains have never been found. She is still considered a missing person. Jeanna's tragic case exposed critical gaps in how authorities responded to missing children, including delays in issuing public alerts, lack of coordination between law enforcement agencies, and inadequate policies for tracking repeat offenders like Kyle Bell. Her family and community pushed for reforms despite facing significant obstacles, including bureaucratic hurdles and initial resistance from law enforcement agencies reluctant to change existing protocols. They mobilized the community through public vigils, petitions, and media campaigns, gaining support from child advocacy groups and policymakers. Their persistence led to the establishment of the Jeanna Alert, a precursor to the modern Amber Alert system in North Dakota. The Jeanna Alert was created in response to Jeanna North's case, spearheaded by her family and child advocacy groups in collaboration with North Dakota law enforcement. The system works by immediately notifying authorities and the public when a child is reported missing under suspicious circumstances, allowing for a rapid response and increased chances of recovery. While the Jeanna Alert laid the foundation for modern child abduction alerts, it has since been integrated into the broader Amber Alert system, ensuring continued vigilance in child safety as of 2025. John North, father of Jeanna, North said he is glad there are strong sex offender registration and notification laws now, but they didn't come in time for Jeanna or Jacob. Though Jeanna's life was tragically cut short, her legacy continues through the protections established in her name. The Jeanna Alert has saved countless children, ensuring that no family has to endure the same nightmare without immediate action.